It all happened so fast we didn't even see it coming. The scream tore through the peaceful morning air like a bullet. "You don't talk to me like that, old lady," came the shrill voice of Karen, our neighborhood's most feared HOA officer. Everyone in the estate knew her: bleach blonde bob haircut, oversized sunglasses, and a walkie-talkie always clipped to her neon vest like she was part of the actual police force. But this time Karen took it way too far. She had cornered my grandma right outside the estate gate, accusing her of trespassing. My grandma, dressed in her usual wide-brimmed straw hat and floral dress, had simply walked down to the gate to collect her mail. That's all. I was a few feet behind, jogging over with the leash in one hand and our small brown dog bouncing beside me. But by the time I reached them, slap. Karen slapped my grandma straight across the face. Gasps exploded from the neighbors around. One woman dropped her cup of coffee. A man fumbled with his phone trying to film it. Even our dog stopped barking, stunned. My breath caught in my throat. Did that really just happen? Karen, breathing hard, pointed a shaky finger at my grandma and yelled, "You don't belong here. I've never seen you before in this neighborhood and you didn't check in at the gate." My grandma slowly raised her head. Her cheek was red. Her eyes, calm. Too calm. Then she gave the tiniest smile. That was when I knew Karen had just made the worst mistake of her entire life. My grandma looked her dead in the eyes and said softly, "You really shouldn't have done that. You just assaulted a retired homicide detective." Karen blinked. "What?" But before anyone else could react, Grandma pulled out her badge. Yes, her actual police badge. But here's the thing. It wasn't just any badge. My name is Jason. I'm 23 years old and live with my grandma in her home here in Willow Creek Estates. My parents passed when I was a teen, so she raised me. She's been everything: mom, dad, best friend. To the world, she's just a kind old woman who gardens and feeds birds. But to me, she's a living legend. She served as a detective for over 30 years. Cold cases, undercover ops, drug busts, you name it, she did it. She was a ghost in the system, known for being 2 steps ahead. She earned the nickname Mama Justice from her squad back in the day. But after retirement, she just wanted peace. That peace vanished the moment we moved to this neighborhood. The HOA was like a cult here. And their queen? Karen. She ran the community like a tiny dictatorship, with her clipboard of violations, her threats of fines, and her ridiculous beautification laws. Too many garden gnomes? Fine. Curtains not beige enough? Fine. I once got fined for slightly aggressive wind chimes. Grandma didn't like bullies. But she told me she was done fighting battles. "I've seen enough in my life, Jason," she said once. "Let the Karens bark. We've got nothing to prove to anyone." So we played along. Paid our dues. Painted the mailbox the right shade of gray. Even tolerated the weekly compliance walk-bys. Until the slap. But let me back up to 2 days before the slap, because that's when Karen first crossed the line, and my grandma started watching. It started with a strange note. We found a printed warning stuck to our front door. Resident found loitering near gate. Unverified. Suspicious activity will result in security action. HOA. My grandma read it out loud, then chuckled. Loitering? Jason, I was picking magnolias. I've been picking magnolias at that same spot since March. Should we report this? I asked. She shook her head. No. But we'll observe. Let's see what's really going on. From that day, she started making quiet little observations, marking times Karen made rounds, what guards were posted at the gates, which cars were randomly stopped. By the end of day 2, she had filled an entire notebook. She's targeting people, Grandma whispered. Anyone who looks too quiet, too new, too old. Then she dropped a small printed photo in front of me. It was a picture of Karen, speaking to the neighborhood's private security in hushed tones. Behind them, a man we'd never seen before, unshaven, in a security uniform with no name tag. That man, Grandma said, tapping the photo, isn't part of the registered gate staff. What does that mean? Grandma stared at the image for a long time, then said, it means Karen isn't just running the HOA. She's running a side operation. The next day, Grandma went out for her daily walk like always. Same path. Same gate. But this time, Karen was already waiting at the gate. You're trespassing, ma'am, Karen snapped. I'm a resident, Grandma replied. Karen stepped closer. I checked the registry. No one over 80 is registered under that house. You're lying. Grandma smiled. So you're checking ages now? Karen didn't smile back. You're going to regret being a smart mouth. Grandma came back home with a tiny scrape on her arm and a scowl on her face. She told me Tomorrow morning I'm going to collect the mail myself. If she shows up again I'll have everything I need. What do you mean? Grandma looked at me, eyes sharp. Let's just say, I've got friends and places Karen can't even imagine. So when Karen slapped her, it wasn't just a random act of violence. It was the trigger. It was the match thrown into gasoline. And when Grandma flashed that batch, Karen's face lost all color. But she still didn't know the real reason why my grandma had shown up at the gate that morning. Because tucked inside Grandma's little woven bag was a USB stick. On it, every illegal conversation Karen had held with the unlicensed guard, audio of her threatening residence, and a full file of how she embezzled HOA funds for her fake security upgrade. Karen looked stunned. But my grandma wasn't done. She stepped forward, voice steady as a steel blade, and said, "This is your final warning, Karen. You have 24 hours to apologize and resign from the HOA, or I hand this to the state attorney's office." Karen opened her mouth to speak, and that's when the black SUV rolled up to the curb behind us. The tinted window slowly rolled down, and a familiar voice said, "Detective Ramirez, you called us in for backup?" The entire street froze. The window of the black SUV rolled down slowly, too slowly. You could feel the tension in the air like a thunderstorm about to break loose. And then we heard the voice again, deep and calm. "Detective Ramirez, you called us in for backup?" Karen's mouth dropped open. Her jaw moved, but no sound came out. My grandma, without turning around, smiled faintly. "Right on time," she said. Out stepped two figures. Both wore dark navy blue jackets with bold yellow letters on the back. State Investigation Bureau. One of them, tall, bald, with sharp eyes, walked up and greeted Grandma with a respectful nod. "Ma'am, we reviewed the drive. This is way bigger than just HOA abuse." "Wait, what's going on?" Karen finally croaked out. The investigator turned toward her and said in a slow, deliberate tone, "You've been running an unauthorized enforcement scheme, threatening residents, forging HOA records, and embezzling community funds." Karen started backing up like a cornered rat. "This is a misunderstanding. She's lying. She's just some old lady who wanders around with a badge." But my grandma raised a hand, cool as ever, and spoke just loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "I didn't come here to arrest you, Karen. I came here to expose you. Let's rewind a bit to how this all came together." After Karen confronted Grandma at the gate the day before the slap, something changed in her. She sat at the dining table for hours, going through her old contacts. Files. Paper notes. Phone numbers scribbled on yellowed notepads. She told me, "Karen reminds me of someone I once arrested. Same arrogance. Same fake authority. That's dangerous." That night she snuck out just after 10 p.m. I followed at a distance. I knew she told me not to worry, but I couldn't let her go alone. What I saw shocked me. Grandma, dressed in a black hoodie and tennis shoes, was sitting by the estate's generator shed with a tiny surveillance drone in her hand. She had planted it 2 days earlier in a nearby bush, aimed directly at the HOA office window. "Jason," she whispered without looking at me, "I think Karen's not just a control freak. She's running something from inside that HOA office." She plugged her laptop into the small receiver she carried. What we saw on that screen. Pure fire. Video files. Audio clips. Spreadsheets. Names of residents Karen was targeting. Fake invoices. And then, an audio file. We clicked play. "Karen, no one suspects anything. That old bat? I'll scare her into silence. She's just here with her grandson, some loser. She'll either leave or fall in line." I was boiling. My grandma? A loser? Oh, she was about to eat those words. The moment Karen saw the second investigator step out with handcuffs on his belt, she panicked. She turned to run. But she forgot something very important. This wasn't just some regular grandma. This was Detective Elena Ramirez, and she hadn't lost her edge. Without breaking a sweat, Grandma extended her cane and hooked it around Karen's ankle. Karen hit the ground with a loud "OOF" and a puff of dust. Gasps and laughter echoed from the nearby crowd of neighbors who had gathered. The investigator moved in quickly. "Karen Jefferson, you are under investigation for misuse of HOA power, financial fraud, and assault." Karen's eyes widened. "Assault? I didn't." Slap. A neighbor had just pulled out their phone and played the video of Karen slapping Grandma earlier that morning. Crystal clear. Full sound. "I think this counts," the investigator said. Karen's voice cracked. She provoked me." "Ma'am," the officer replied, pulling out the handcuffs, "she was walking her dog." By now, at least 30 people had gathered. Cars had stopped. Kids on bikes. Retirees with their morning newspapers. Then someone in the back shouted, "What about the fine she gave me for parking in my own driveway?" Another chimed in, "She made my wife cry over lawn ornaments." One by one the stories poured out. People had been afraid to speak up, thinking it was just how the HOA worked. But now they realized they weren't alone. One woman stepped forward and hugged Grandma. "You're a hero. We needed someone brave enough to stand up." Grandma smiled warmly. "We don't need heroes. We need justice." Just when we thought it was over, one of the investigators turned to my grandma with a concerned expression. "Elena," he said, voice low, "the files go deeper than Karen. There's another name on here, someone you used to work with. Someone we thought disappeared." Grandma's eyes narrowed. "Who?" He handed her a printed sheet. Her hand trembled for the first time all morning. "Agent Colburn," she whispered. That name meant nothing to me. But by the look on her face, it was about to mean everything. She turned to me, lips tight. "Jason, we're not done yet. Karen was just the beginning. There's something bigger going on, and I might be the only one who can stop it." As Karen was being placed in the SUV, my grandma pulled me aside and whispered, "Pack a bag. We leave tonight. There's someone else watching us." And just as she said it, we saw it. A white SUV parked across the street. Tinted windows. Engine running. Watching. Waiting. The white SUV didn't move. It just sat there across the street, engine humming softly, like a patient predator waiting for the perfect moment to pounce. Grandma's hand clutched my wrist, her grip surprisingly strong for a woman in her 70s. "Don't wave. Don't look too long," she whispered. "They're not here for a joyride." We turned and walked back toward the house like everything was normal. Grandma even waved to our neighbor, Mrs. Lafferty, who stood frozen on her porch with a hand over her mouth. But my eyes kept flicking toward the SUV. Its window remained rolled up. No license plate. And I had a feeling whoever was inside knew we saw them. The moment we got in, Grandma locked the door and pulled all the curtains. She didn't panic. She didn't even raise her voice. Instead, she walked calmly into her study, a room I wasn't usually allowed to enter. I followed her anyway. Inside was a wall of filing cabinets, a desk stacked with folders, and a hidden shelf that popped open when she pressed a certain book on her shelf, The Art of War. From the hidden shelf, she pulled out an old black case. It opened slowly with a hiss. Inside was her service pistol, still gleaming. A badge. Old ID cards. And something I'd never seen before. A second USB stick labeled Colburn. "Jason," she said, voice low and serious, "Karen was a snake. But Colburn? He's a python." I blinked. "Wait. I thought he was just some guy from your past." Grandma sat at the desk and plugged the drive into her laptop. She clicked through several encrypted folders. When the first video file opened, my heart nearly stopped. It was Karen, again. Only this time she wasn't alone. She was talking to a tall man with slicked-back gray hair and piercing eyes. His voice was calm, slow, and deliberate. The kind of voice that made your stomach knot. "You keep control over Willow Creek," he told Karen, "and we'll get the zoning changed. You'll get your cut." Karen nodded. "And the Ramirez lady?" He smirked. "I already faked her background check. She's just an old grandma now. No one will believe a word she says." I looked at Grandma. Her eyes were glassy, but not from tears. From fury. "That's Colburn," she said. "We worked together on a sting operation 15 years ago. He disappeared after it went sideways. Everyone thought he died." She pointed at the screen. "But he's alive, and now he's laundering money through HOA boards." "We have to move fast," Grandma said, shutting the laptop and standing up. "Colburn knows I'm alive. And if he's watching now, it means he's trying to wipe his tracks." "But what do we do?" I asked. "We're just in a house. No team. No backup." She smiled faintly. "We've got more than you think." That's when she pulled out her old burner phone. One by one she started calling her retired squad, people with names like Hawk, Pixie, and Iron Mike. "Pack light," she told them. "We're going hunting." That afternoon, just as the sun began to dip low, 2 black SUVs pulled into Karen's driveway. Estate agents in suits streamed out. Flashlights. Clipboards. Warrants. Karen's house was being torn apart. But what they found was worse than anyone expected. One agent held up a large envelope filled with cash and checkbooks. Another wheeled out a shredder machine still warm. And in a drawer beneath her bed, they found photos of other HOA presidents across the state, marked, dated, and linked to the same security company. This wasn't just about power trips, Grandma told me. This was a network. Karen was a small fry. But Colburn? He was the chef running the whole kitchen. Around midnight, we heard a soft ding from Grandma's laptop. An untraceable message popped up. Elena, I should have made sure you stayed buried in that cold case. But it doesn't matter. You want to play detective again? Fine. I'll give you one last game. Let's see how many secrets your HOA friends can handle before the whole neighborhood burns. Attached? A grainy surveillance photo. Of me. Walking our dog. Alone. At the park. From earlier that week. Grandma, I whispered. He's watching us. She closed the laptop and stood up. No, Jason. He's challenging us. Then she walked over to the closet, pulled out an old dusty box marked Ramirez Archive, unsolved, and said, "Time to finish what I started." The next morning things got weirder. Someone had broken into the HOA office overnight. Nothing was taken, except one thing. The hard drive of the HOA security system. Also, someone had posted a flyer at every front door in the neighborhood. If you think Karen was the problem, think again. We're all being watched. Your grandma made it worse. No signature. Just a red X at the bottom. Neighbors started whispering. Fear spread like wildfire. And that's when someone knocked on our door. A young man, maybe in his 20s, stood there with wide eyes. "I'm new here," he said quietly. "Moved in 2 months ago. But I used to work for Colburn. I think I know where he's hiding." Grandma narrowed her eyes. "Come in," she said, stepping aside. But she reached for her cane again, and this time, I noticed it wasn't just a cane. It had a hidden blade inside. Because from this moment forward, it was a war. The young man stepped cautiously into our living room. His name was Eli. Late 20s. Nervous eyes. Military haircut. And a deep scar running along his jawline that looked like it had a story of its own. "I don't work for Colburn anymore," he said quickly. "I never believed in what he was doing. But he doesn't let people leave." Grandma watched him with sharp eyes, studying every twitch of his body, every pause in his words. She didn't trust him yet. I could feel it. Neither did I. "What was your job?" Grandma asked, her voice flat. "I was tech support for his dummy security firm, Safehouse LLC. We installed cameras. Microphones. Some legal, some not so much. Most of our work was in gated communities. HOA-run neighborhoods just like this one." Eli pulled out a crumpled map from his jacket and spread it on the table. He pointed to our estate, Willow Creek, then drew lines to 4 others nearby. "All these HOAs have presidents on Colburn's payroll. Karen was one of his loudest," he said. "She made a name for herself by turning over homeowners who resisted. Those people either got forced out or blackmailed." He slid a flash drive across the table. "Everything I saved from the inside. You'll want to see this." That night we watched footage that made my skin crawl. Hidden cameras inside people's homes. HOA meetings with secret votes. Financial records doctored. Residents' personal information sold to third-party buyers. But one file stood out. It was a video conference timestamped just a week ago. Karen sat at her desk. And across the screen? Colburn. Still as stone. Leaning forward. Voice like smoke. "We need that Ramirez woman gone. The old detective. She's not like the others. She asks questions." Karen nodded. "I tried scaring her off." Colburn frowned. "Try harder. Or I'll send someone who doesn't scare so easily." My grandma leaned back in her chair and said calmly, "Well, here I am, still not scared." By the next morning, word had spread that Karen's vacation was really a full-blown investigation. But now, strange things began happening. Sprinkler systems turned on randomly at night. Cameras, new ones, showed up on random rooftops. A neighbor's car exploded from underneath due to a tampered gas line. Luckily no one was hurt, but it sent a message. Colburn had operatives inside Willow Creek. And they were getting desperate that afternoon. While Grandma was organizing her files in the living room, there was a sudden crash. The back window shattered. Someone threw a brick, wrapped in newspaper. It hit the wall hard, knocking down a frame. Inside the newspaper? A note, "Back off, detective. Or next time it won't be a brick." Eli ducked under the table. That's his style. He intimidates first, then eliminates. But Grandma didn't flinch. She looked at the brick and said, "Cowards throw from the shadows. Let's flush them into the light." That evening, Grandma, Eli, and I sat around the dining table. "This neighborhood is the hub," Grandma said. If we expose it, the whole network collapses. She pulled out a blueprint of the HOA office building. There's a hidden server room. Karen showed it off in an old HOA tour video. It stores all digital records, emails, transactions, surveillance. If we can get in, we can pull proof of the other neighborhoods too. But they'll be guarding it, I said. Grandma nodded. That's why we're going in at night. We dressed in dark clothing. Grandma wore her old detective vest under her hoodie. I carried the laptop and flashlight. Eli had tools to override electronic locks. We approached the HOA building just after 1 a.m. The moon was high. The neighborhood was silent, except for the faint click of the door unlocking under Eli's skilled fingers. We slipped inside. Every creak of the wood floor felt like thunder. Every breath sounds too loud. Then from the back we found it, a metal door secured with a keypad. I can crack this, Eli whispered, pulling out a small device. Grandma stood guard, eyes darting like a hawk. Suddenly a noise. Footsteps. Coming closer. Someone was inside the building with us. Eli worked faster. Beep, 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 flick. The door swung open. Go, he hissed. We rushed into the server room, cold, dark rows of blinking lights. Grandma shoved the flash drive into the main terminal. Come on, she muttered. Suddenly the door slammed shut behind us. The lock clicked. We were trapped. The lights flickered. Then a voice echoed through the server room speakers, distorted and slow. You just made your last mistake, Elena. It was Colburn. He was watching us. What? Now let's see how good the legendary Detective Ramirez really is, without a way out. And with that, the building began to fill with smoke. The room filled fast. Thick, gray smoke slithered from the ceiling vents like a snake wrapping around our necks. The lights above flickered wildly, on, off, casting shadows that made everything 10 times more terrifying. Eli stumbled backward, coughing hard. This is a trap. I pulled my shirt over my nose, struggling to breathe. The server room was small, airtight, with no windows, just racks of humming equipment and flashing red lights that now looked like alarms instead of indicators. Grandma didn't panic. Instead, she dropped to the floor, flat on her stomach. Smoke rises, she barked. Get low, stay low. She began dragging herself across the floor toward the far wall. I dropped down beside her. Where are you going? There's always a second exit in any server room. Code requires it. Even corrupt people follow fire laws. She was right. After a few seconds of feeling along the wall, she found it, a barely noticeable panel behind one of the shelves. A ventilation door used for cooling overflow. Small, narrow, but just big enough. Eli, help me pull this open, she shouted. Eli, now crawling low and wheezing, fumbled with the metal bolts. It stuck. I grabbed a screwdriver from the nearby server tools bin and jammed it into the edge. Crack. The panel popped open with a loud bang. Grandma looked at me. You go first. No, I said. You. She grinned. Still the same stubborn kid I raised. We slid through one by one, coughing and dragging ourselves through the narrow vent like rats in a maze. After about 15 feet, the duct opened into the back hallway, freezing cold but breathable. We all collapsed onto the floor, gulping in the clean air. But we couldn't rest yet, because from the front of the building we heard footsteps. Heavy boots. Multiple people. Coming fast. Eli scrambled to his feet and pulled out a small flashlight. 2 exits, he said. Back alley or crawl space through the janitor's closet. Your call. Grandma didn't hesitate. Crawl space. Too tight for more than one to follow. We need to vanish. We rushed to the closet and pried open the panel. I dropped in first, then Eli, then Grandma. Just as we sealed it behind us, the footsteps entered the hallway we were in seconds before. Men with tactical gear. Faces covered. Colburn's private team. We didn't go back home immediately. Grandma led us to an old friend's house on the far side of the neighborhood. Mr. Washington, a retired firefighter who owed her a favor. In his basement, Eli set up the laptop and inserted the drive. We had successfully downloaded all the files from the server before the smoke attack. Emails. Invoices. Photos. Maps. But one file stood out. It was titled, Phase 3 Estate Reset Plan. We opened it, and what we saw chilled us to the bone. It was a plan to completely displace Willow Creek residents. Colburn and his fake security company had partnered with a foreign real estate developer. The goal? Use legal HOA loopholes to seize property. Remove difficult homeowners. Resell land at triple value. It wasn't just fraud. It was organized property theft. and the final step was scheduled for Friday morning. That was 2 days away. While we were still processing everything, Mr. Washington came down with a worried look. "You've got a visitor," he said. "Claims she's with Homeland Security." "What?" I said. Grandma stood up slowly. "What's her name?" Mr. Washington answered, "Agent Marla." Grandma's face changed. Then she smiled. "About time." We walked upstairs to find a tall, dark-skinned woman in a navy suit, arms crossed, standing near the fireplace. Her hair was braided tightly. Her ID badge shined under the lamplight. "Agent Marla Daniels," she said, flashing her credentials. "I've been tracking Colburn for 5 years." Grandma nodded. "I should have known you'd be in this. He's on the DHS terror watch list. Domestic fraud, racketeering, and corruption through HOAs. But we've never had enough inside proof, until now." Grandma handed her the drive. Marla slid it into her laptop. She scanned the files. Eyes widened. Mouth tightened. This is enough to take him down federally," she said. "You just lit a fire Colburn can't put out." As Agent Marla was speaking, we heard another sound. We turned. Eli was holding a gun. Pointed at us. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I thought I could help you. But they found my sister. If I don't deliver the drive, they'll kill her." Grandma didn't blink. "You have 2 choices, Eli. Pull that trigger, or help us stop this madness and save her the right way." Tears filled Eli's eyes. The gun trembled in his hands. Then, bang. The gun went off. But not how we thought. He had turned and fired at the window, shattering it. Someone had been watching through it with a scope. A sniper. Eli dove to the ground. "They're here." They followed us. Agent Marla sprang into action, grabbing Grandma and pulling her down. I yanked Eli behind the couch. Bullets ripped through the front door a second later. Outside we heard tires screeching. Men shouting. Colburn's team was making their final move. Grandma looked up from behind the couch, calm as ever. She turned to Agent Marla and said, "Forget taking him down in court. We end this on our terms." She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out something I had never seen before. A sealed letter with the president's emblem on it. "Let's make this official," she said. The living room was chaotic. Shards of glass littered the floor. The front door hung off its hinges. Gunshots echoed into the night as shadows darted across the lawn outside. But at the center of the storm, Grandma stood calmly, holding a letter stamped with the official seal of the President of the United States. Agent Marla looked stunned. Where did you get that?" Grandma didn't take her eyes off the door. "It's called an Executive Commendation and Emergency Authority Letter. I earned it after dismantling a major cartel 15 years ago. It gives me limited operational authority in a national emergency." Marla blinked. "And you're invoking it now?" Grandma nodded. "Colburn's operation spans states. His organization targets veterans, minorities, the elderly. This isn't just a scam. It's a homeland security threat." Then she looked at me. "Jason, go to the basement. Hit the red switch on the wall. Now." I didn't ask questions. I ran. Down in Mr. Washington's basement, tucked behind an old fire hose cabinet, was a small steel box with a single red toggle switch and a keyhole. I slid the key Grandma gave me into the lock and flipped the switch. A deep hum filled the room. All at once, every smart device in the house flickered. Security cameras outside swiveled toward the street. Antennas on the roof activated. Grandma's old system, a secure encrypted signal network, went live. She wasn't just a detective. She had built a backdoor surveillance system of her own, just in case the system ever turned against the people. Just when it felt like we were outnumbered and outgunned, black helicopters swooped in from the west. 3 SUVs screeched around the block, blocking all exits. Uniformed officers in tactical gear flooded the front yard. But these weren't Colburn's men. They wore Homeland Security patches. Real ones. "Get down. Hands in the air," they shouted. One of the masked attackers tried to run but was immediately tackled and cuffed. Agent Marla stepped outside, badge held high. "This is a coordinated federal takedown. Stand down now or face a military tribunal." Colburn's men hesitated. And that's when Grandma walked out the front door. Colburn stepped out of a dark black van across the street. He wore a suit. Calm. Smug. His eyes scanned the scene. Agents swarming, his men on their knees, the entire block under lockdown. But he still smiled. "Elena," he said, spreading his arms, "you always did love a dramatic finish." Grandma raised her voice. "You used good people as pawns. Terrorized veterans. Took homes from families. For what? Power? Colburn shrugged. You can't stop progress. She held up the flash drive. I already did. He smirked. That drive won't matter. I have friends in high places. She took one slow step forward and said loud and clear. So do I. Agent Marla stepped up and handed her a tablet. Live video played on screen. News anchors on national television reporting Colburn's takedown. Headlines read, Fraud Kingpin Exposed in Multi-State HOA Scandal. Whistleblower Detective Ramirez Takes Down Corruption Ring. Feds Launch Full Investigation into HOA Abuses Nationwide. Colburn's face dropped. The smugness vanished. He turned to run. But he didn't get far. Grandma's cane swept out. One swift move. Colburn hit the pavement with a grunt. The cane's hidden blade was never even drawn. Over the next week, arrests were made in 5 states. HOA boards were disbanded. Fake security companies shut down. At Willow Creek, the residents held a neighborhood meeting, this time without fear. They voted to dissolve the HOA and install a resident council, made up of actual homeowners. They offered Grandma the chair seat. She declined. I've got gardening to catch up on, she said. Life slowly returned to normal. Eli was cleared of charges and entered witness protection with his sister. Agent Marla was promoted to head of a new division on HOA corruption, named after Elena Ramirez herself. And me? I went back to school, studying criminal justice. Because of her. Because my grandma showed me that justice doesn't wear a cape. It wears a sun hat, carries a cane, and walks like it's got nothing left to prove. One quiet afternoon, Grandma and I stood at the front gate, the same one where it all began. She looked around the peaceful street and said, Funny thing, Jason. What? She never apologized for the slap. I laughed. Would you even want her to? She smiled. No. Her silence was worth more. And with that, she turned back toward the house, where justice had found its home again.